Um, Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This is really a very special opportunity we have here with Ken Harbaugh. Um, Ken, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Stuart?
Um, I'm okay. Look, the last time Ken and I saw each other was in Kiev, which we were helping with an aid project there, distributing some non-lethal aid. And while the rest of us stayed in Kiev and went out to bars, he actually went out to the zero line um, and did some extraordinary reporting that we're going to share here. And just to set the table here, I saw a couple of journalists that I've known forever in Kiev, uh, guys who've been in the war since the day before the war. And all of them, or both of them, said they would never do what Ken did, like because of the risk factor. So I just think that has to be appreciated. Why it is we don't see these stories so much, and how much we owe Ken for uh, taking that risk and coming back with this reporting. And if you don't subscribe to his Substack, the Ken Harbaugh show, you have to do it. It's really extraordinary stuff. Um, you should subscribe. You should be a paid subscriber to help cover the cost of Ken going out to these places. Um, so we have about a 4-minute video here. That Ken, do you want to say something that kind of set this up?
Yeah. And this was never thrown together with the intention of, showing it to a huge audience. I just wanted to capture the moment, but I think it tells a pretty compelling story, which is the story of these mobile air defense crews, which are stationed all over Ukraine, but predominantly around their biggest cities to stop the Shahed drones and the cruise missiles before they hit population centers. And that's who Putin is targeting, right? He's targeting playgrounds and hospitals. And with the winter approaching, his main target right now are power plants and substations because he wants Ukrainians to suffer through the winter. So I spent a couple of nights with crews around Kherson, around Odessa. Stuart and I actually met with a crew in Kiev, but they position themselves in these tightening concentric rings around the cities that they're assigned to defend. They each have an arc of fire that they're responsible for, and anything that comes within their zone, they have to shoot down. And it's hard to put yourself in the frame of mind of these guys, and it was all men that I was serving with, but it helps to understand what they're defending because it's their families behind them, right? It's their families who live in the city that they're defending or who may live in the city down the coast that a buddy of theirs is defending. And I had that actual experience with the crew, the second crew I was with, manning a Ju 23 millimeter twin cannon, when one of the crew members got a message that his neighborhood had been hit. And it's not like he could drive home and see if his family was alive. He had to be on that gun to defend the families of Odessa behind him. It's just a gut wrenching experience to be with these guys, especially as the Shaheds fly over the Black Sea and you have that weight. It's almost reminiscent of the Battle of Britain, right? When they knew that the German fighters were in the air and they just had that sinking feeling in their stomachs and there's nothing they could do except gear themselves up for the coming battle. And hopefully that comes across in this video. We're on the shore of the Black Sea here in Odessa, Ukraine. The Shahed drones leave Crimea, they fly over the Black Sea, and they target civilian neighborhoods. Our mobile air defense crew is on the hill overlooking the beach here, waiting for the waves of Shaheds to come in over the water. At that point, they'll engage, guide their tracer rounds into the sheds, and fingers crossed, down them before they hit apartment buildings, hospitals, playgrounds across the city. Sergey is on the gun tonight, a 23 millimeter Zu anti-air defense weapon, and the ground around the vehicle is littered with these casings. These are the 23 millimeter rounds and they just spit out of the gun as it's firing. We just heard from Artur as they're tracking the incoming Shaheds that his neighborhood just got hit. One of the scariest things about being on these crews is that you're defending your families, and it's gonna have to wait until he gets home, until he gets off shift, to make sure everyone that he cares about is okay. But some of these Shaheds do get through. This weapon, however, the 23 millimeter Jew, is incredibly effective at taking them down, as we're about to see when it's in the right hands. What's happening right now is the commander, Dmitry, is giving the team instructions to prep the gun. The Shaheds are several minutes out, 2 to 3 minutes out. They're coming in over the Black Sea. They've launched from Russia, a long journey, over an hour in flight. But these last few minutes, it gets pretty intense as they're scanning the sky with both night vision and infrared, looking for the targets. You can hear them giving the azimuth, range, elevation. We've been hearing booms farther down the coast as other teams engage. So we just saw another rocket head downrange and take out a Shahed. That's 3 for the night. I don't think any have gotten through yet, but the ones that get past the rockets are going to be engaged by this team right here. Another long night defending the city of Odessa from Shahed and missile attacks. There are no more incoming drones, but the toughest thing to capture, the toughest thing to describe, is the tension of the wait. As you track these Shaheds and missiles coming at your city, there's nothing you can do except wait until the moment they're a couple minutes out and then get on the gun and try to shoot them down. Last night, we were with an anti-drone mobile gun crew at the edge of the Black Sea, intercepting Shaheds off the water, launched from Crimea to fly into Odessa and strike civilian targets. And this is the aftermath when those Shaheds get through. This is a navigation module pulled from a downed Shahed. Doesn't look terribly sophisticated, but this board is. It's one of the major cost factors in the drone, but kind of upsetting that this is an American part and an American chip, and they are still making it into Russia to go into these terror weapons that are raining down on Ukrainian cities. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Ken. You know, I thought your reference to England and the Battle of Britain was so spot on and important because, you know, we grew up, we read about this. It seemed like a different era. And yet here we are again in Europe, these cities, and just, I mean, imagine if it was Pensacola or New York or any Los Angeles, Southern California. What it's like. And I think that it's just hard for the world to wrap our minds around the fact that the largest land war since World War II is happening in Europe. And once again, a terrorist, autocrat, dictator is trying to overthrow a European democracy.
There are so many parallels between what is happening in Ukraine right now and the Battle of Britain and World War II, starting with like the characters involved. Zelensky is a Churchillian figure
Yeah.
in his resolve, in his courage, in the example that he's setting, not just for his own people, but for the world. And I think people who study Putin, who understand his ambitions and his bloodlust, wouldn't be too wrong to compare him to Hitler. I mean, the parallels really are that close, and I think the world needs to wake up to the fact that we're in 1939 right now. And what happened in 1940 and 1941 when we didn't wake up to the threat soon enough? That's what Putin wants to do to Europe. And Ukraine is the bulwark. It's the first line of defense to prevent that from happening. One thing I didn't mention in that video is that that was the second night of this massive drone assault on Ukraine cities. I was in Odessa the second night. The first night I was in Kherson, and that first night coincided with Putin's birthday. Something I didn't know anything about, but everyone in Ukraine knows when Putin's birthday is because, as a tradition, he launches waves of drone attacks each year, trying to outdo the last year against Ukrainian cities. His birthday is an occasion to kill as many Ukrainian civilians as possible. I don't know what else you need to know to understand who Putin is.
Yeah, can I tell all my Republican friends it's crazy to say that this is Germany in 1936 when it's so clearly Germany in 1939.
Yeah.
And what I just find, look, you came out of the military. I came out of Republican politics. You had a much more honorable, productive I did. But it was just, I just can't still grasp that for decades, the core of the strongest, most consistent anti-Soviet Union, strong against an expansive Russian Federation, was the most conservative element of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And that is now the beating heart of the pro-Putin movement in American politics, which is not small.
Well, somebody once told me it was all a lie. Um, I mean, it shows you how hollow those principles were. And some of that might just be a generational shift, right? I'm sure you're tracking this Republican chat group, right? These young Republicans growing up now have known nothing else but um, the the Putin sympathies and the racism and all of that. That's got to be part of it. I'd like to think that the old school Republicans still understand the threat that Russia and Putin poses, but you're better positioned to answer that than I am.
Yeah, look, I'd like to talk some to a degree that we can, and you think it's okay, about the visit that we had in Kiev to the air defense.
Yeah.
Can you, uh, Ken, just to set this up, uh, was kind enough to invite me to go out to see one of these air defenses on the river that divides Kiev. Ken, you want to tell us about it? And
Yeah. So this is a gun crew, one of those concentric circles that defends the cities of Ukraine. This was a Kiev mobile air defense unit. I think I can say, I'm just checking myself, set up overlooking the river because one of the flight paths of these drones, and it's mainly Shahed drones, which are these Iranian design really cheap things. You saw the airframe behind me in the second to the last shot in that video. They're thrown together. Critically, though, they have American parts as their guidance, as their brains, and they fly into cities with 100-kilogram warheads and blow up whatever they hit. I'm putting out a video. Stuart, you'll remember we visited the captain of the gun crew afterwards at his home, which had been hit right across the street by one of these Shaheds. The damage these things do is terrifying. It's tremendous. I mean, imagine 100 kilograms of explosive going off across the street from your house. But the thing that sets this gun crew apart is that, like a lot of gun crews, it's an all volunteer crew, but it is commanded by a Supreme Court justice, a Ukrainian Supreme Court justice. And every time I say that out loud, I have to like catch myself because I try to picture, I don't know, Clarence Thomas or any American Supreme Court justice taking off their robes at the end of a shift and getting to their gun position to defend their city. Furthermore, this gun crew captain, his call sign is Judge, not very creative, but fitting, right? On the first day of the war, as the tanks were approaching Kyiv, he rallied other Supreme Court justices. They got AK-47s from the armory, and they ran to the front to be part of the fight, pushing back the Russian tanks. Kyiv held, of course. Now Kyiv is getting bombarded almost every night, and it is up to these gun crews to shoot down those Shaheeds before they hit houses like Judges. It's heroic work. Um, Everything except the gun and the ammo, these guys cover themselves. And after the last trip, not the one Stuart and I were just on, but the one before that, I did a short interview with Yuri. It blew up. Money started pouring in from all over, with all kinds of suggestions on how they should spend it, because they need a lot. They need night vision goggles. They need warmer gear for the winter because they're overlooking the water. We sent them a big check. Every single penny of that went to a unit at the front that needed combat boots. These are not selfish guys. Like, they understand that this is a nation at war, and their part of it is just one small piece.
You know, Ken, when we went to his house, I just thought it was so extraordinary because it really, again, was a sort of Battle of Britain moment. Their dark humor, their sort of fatalism about it. And this is just a picture like your house. And you know, the judge had a nice new car that he had bought that was sitting in the driveway. This thing hit at 6 a.m. He and his wife were sleeping in the cellar, which probably saved their lives. But you know, think about it. You're saving up, you buy this car, you get it out there, and then like a drone comes and blows it up hits across the street, and just their sort of resilience and sort of shrugging it off.
Yeah.
They just put in new windows in the house.
And he went back to work the next day. He went back. If a 100-kilogram, a 220-pound bomb had gone off across the street from my house, I'd probably take a day or two. It's another Tuesday for these guys.
Yeah, and the improvisation of what they're doing, the sort of ingenuity of it. I don't know what detail we can go into about their gun position, but this is not a super sophisticated like something you would see in a Department of Defense movie of what United States would be doing. This is scrappy,
Yeah.
right there. And I just, when we were there, it was during the day, it was getting cold, it was October, but I was just thinking about what is it like for this guy? You're sitting there, you're hearing cases all day, and he works with these other judges who are part of his volunteer group, like he's saying, these lawyers. And then you leave and you go out and you spend the night, like, it gets incredibly cold. You're out there on the river with this wind, and you're firing these high caliber machine guns.
Yeah.
It's just such a extraordinary story. And Ken, if you don't mind, I'd really love for you to talk about kind of how when you go out and do these things like the front lines like this, how do you begin to calculate just the personal risk? And it's because it's just something that very few people are doing.
Well, let me frame it this way. The most dangerous thing I've done in my life, the guys I was with do every day, right? I spent 20 hours pinned down with a kamikaze drone crew at the zero line in Kherson as wave after wave. This was the night of Operation Spiderweb. If folks don't recall, and there's no reason you should, that was Ukraine's masterful strategic operation several months ago, deep inside Russia, where they pre-positioned drones in containers on the backs of trucks, and they launched into the air near Russian strategic air bases and took out nearly a third of Putin's bomber fleet, surveillance fleet. It was a devastating blow to Russia's strategic capability. But as you can imagine, Putin was pretty mad that night. It's not like we were planning it, but I was at the front with a kamikaze drone crew, and wave after wave kept hitting our position. I stopped counting after the eighth drone landed nearby, um, and the guys just laughed through all of it. And I'll tell a short vignette about that in a second. But that's why I need to reframe it away from like the risks I'm taking. That was one night. That was 20 hours of my life. The unit commander that I was with was on his third shift. He had been up for 40 hours, 40 hours. They wanted to send him back out because he was their best guy and they didn't want to get an American killed, right? The guy had been up for 40 hours and wasn't going to take a break after this shift either. They are doing this shift after shift after shift with no breaks. So I don't feel like I have a lot to complain about in terms of the risks I'm taking.
Well, before you tell us, let me just say, Ken wrote really just amazing piece about this that was in the Atlantic about 3 weeks ago. It came out. And you should definitely go and read that. It's a classic piece of war reportage. It's which I'm a great fan of the genre, but it's really really well done.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. And the thing that reassures me that the Ukrainians are going to win this thing is their sense of humor. I'm under no illusions. Conditions in Ukrainian trenches is rough, but I promise you, it is rougher in Russian trenches.
Yeah.
And being with these guys as they are tapping into the feed of the Russian drones so that they can literally see what the Russian drone operator is seeing as it pans across our position. And instead of freaking out, instead of panicking, which was was my instinct, right? They're laughing. And
Well, just stop. Let me get so what you're saying is they have tapped into so they can see with these first person view drones what the Russian operator is seeing as this thing is sort of cruising around looking for targets, and
yeah.
you happen to be the target.
Well, they're looking for us. We're hidden really, really well. But every time the camera, and we're out with two different teams. One team, the way Ukrainian suicide drone operations work is that they try not to keep the pilots and the explosives too near each other. So if anyone has a more dangerous jobs, it's the guys who attach the bombs to the drones. They're a couple of streets away. I'm with the pilots who, as soon as they're given control, take those explosive drones off and fly them into Russian targets. We've tapped into the Russian feed, as Stuart said, so we're able to see on our screens exactly what the Russian drone operator is seeing. And as that camera comes across our position, as they're looking for any indications that there might be, people in this, I won't describe it too closely, but people in this area, instead of curling into a ball, the guys I'm with are like laughing at the screen and like waving the Russian drone operator across the street and saying, hit the other team. They're assholes. They're talking about their own buddies, right? A couple of streets away. And it's that not just the camaraderie, but the black humor, the resolve that I think anybody who doubts their willingness and ability to win needs to understand what I saw, and their doubts will evaporate.
Yeah. So look, let me just have Sam. Sam, can you put up Ken's Substack again, please? Because really, you have to be following what Ken is doing. It's really extraordinary stuff. And Ken, just take a moment. You talk about your own personal background in the military. You're a Navy Academy grad, right? You were a pilot.
I was off the street. I had no intention of joining the Navy, so I was a walk on to the naval aviation team after college. Every year they took a handful of guys like me. to become Navy pilots. So I did it the easy way. I went through officer candidate school, 13 weeks. I had my, my ensign bars, and a year and a half later, I was a pilot, and shortly after that, flying recon missions in the EP-3.
And your dad was a pilot as well, right? In
Yeah,
Vietnam?
my dad flew Phantoms. I'm not sure I've got a picture of him back here somewhere. We lost him back in April. Hell of a pilot. My grandfather flew B-17s in World War II. My brother was an F-16 pilot, so I guess it's in the blood.
Yeah. And the piece that you wrote about your dad, I just found so moving. And I assume it's on your Substack. If it's not, you should put it on there
It's
because
not. I will. Thank you, Stuart.
you
I will
really,
put it up.
you really should. It's a beautiful piece of writing. So, Ken, look, one of the questions that I'm sure you get all the time, and I'm getting now that did this short trip to Ukraine, is if you want to help, what are the best ways to help? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on this?
great. For starters, educate yourself about what's going on. Learn something about the tens of thousands of children that have been abducted by Russia from Ukraine. Learn about what life is actually like in the occupied areas, because every time we have this ridiculous suggestion that the price of peace is giving part of Ukraine to Russia, understand what that means for the people who are stuck there. Imagine if somebody invades your home and camps out in your daughter's bedroom, and the price of getting them of peace is letting them have it. Right? It's a non-starter. But there are some great organizations doing great work to help Ukrainians both at the front lines and civilians in the rear. One of my favorites is Ukraine Freedom Project. So maybe we'll plug that one. There are some more discrete organizations that have to be much more careful about how they operate. So we're not gonna plug those, but Ukraine Freedom Project does incredible work, and we can talk openly about that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ken. Really, just amazing work. And what do you have on tap next? What are your plans?
I'm talking to Eric Swalwell in 20 minutes
Good.
for the Ken Harbaugh show.
I will.
A
I'll
little off. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I'll be tuning into that.
Great.
Yep.
Little off topic, but one of the things that I think Eric has been just such a leader on is this idea of holding ICE accountable. And I guess I will relate it to the fight in Ukraine by observing that the fascist tide is rising in a lot of places, not just in Russia, and it's going to take all of us to try to stem that tide. And Eric has been just so
Yeah.
clear-eyed in saying that his number one piece of advice for ICE agents right now is lawyer up, because you might feel like there never will be accountability, but the day will come when this era passes, and not only will you and your family be ashamed of what you chose to do, there will be legal accountability, because make no mistake, DHS is breaking the law every day.
Yeah. My dad was an FBI agent, and the idea that he would leave the house and mask up, it's just so unimaginable. Or that in any way, he would be ashamed of what he was doing, or have to try to hide it. It just shows how far we've fallen. And I think that overwhelmingly, the majority of law enforcement looks at these guys and says, like, "What is this?" Because the whole movement in law enforcement has been to accountability,
Yeah.
transparency, the body cameras. It helps them. They've now we've been through this. We've had this discussion. We've tested it, and to see some freak like Stephen Miller, it's just extraordinary. And I agree with you and Eric, and he has just done amazing work. There will be accountability for this.
Yeah.
And following orders has never proven to be a great defense.
No, it hasn't. Can I share one
Please.
observation with you from Chris Goldsmith, who I have on the show often? He's an extremism researcher who has pretty solid anecdotal evidence. He's going to back it up with like deep research that membership and recruitment for the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers is cratering right now, and that's not good news. because those people are joining ICE and they're
Yes.
getting $50,000 bonus checks.
Yeah.
Think about the kind of person who joins ICE today and look at the January 6th crowd. Uh, what's that joke? There's a reason you never see Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus together, right? It's the same people.
Yeah. All right, Ken. Thanks. We'll let you go. And look forward to tuning in here when you talk to Eric very shortly. Thanks. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Thanks, Stuart.